Hare Krishna. Welcome to Sri Lakshmi Narashima Temple of Bangalore. So this is Divya for Giridhari Times. This weekend we have with us a very special guest, His Grace Gopal Hari Pr, who has come all the way from the US along with his mother, Her Grace Arita Mataji, for the purpose of conducting a 2-day seminar here in Bangalore on the topic of parenting in Krishna consciousness. Gopal Hari Prabhu has done his bachelor's and master's in electrical engineering from the Boise State University and has currently completed his PhD in the field of science and religion from the Oxford University. Hare Krishna Prabhu, first of all, thank you very much for being here. And so Prabhu, you've come all the way from the US, almost traveled half across the globe for the purpose of this seminar. So what brings you here, or how important is the seminar to you?
What brought my mother and I to do these seminars here in India is we've been doing these seminars all over the world. We did many in America, many in Australia, Europe. And the reason why these seminars are so popular is because these days people are very concerned about education. Education is one of the key phenomena, key places of focus for the modern world. But in our educational system, people are finding, although the academic standard is there, children today are lacking the values, the morals, the character that their parents would like to see them have. This is a very major problem in America and all over the world. Recently in America they did a study of what were the major problems in schools 10 years ago as opposed to now. So they found that 10 years ago the main problems were chewing gum, talking too loud in the hallways, and sometimes being rude to the teachers. Now the main problems in schools are drugs, teen pregnancy, and guns. So the direction in which society is going today, especially our youth, is not good. So for the spiritual upliftment of humanity, we need good educational systems. And one of these systems that we found is Krishna conscious parenting, teaching children at home spiritual values, spiritual books like the Srimad Bhagavatam, and helping them progress both academically and spiritually and morally.
So on a personal note, Prabhu, can you tell us something about your family and your hobbies and other interests?
Well, my parents settled in America before I was born. I was born in India, but they were there in the States before I was born. So I grew up in a culture that was very different from our Vaishnava, Hindu, you could say, culture. And so when my parents moved to Boise, Idaho, this was about almost 30 years ago, there was no temple there. There were only 2 other Indian families. And so they needed some spiritual life and some social life. So they decided to open a temple there in Boise. Boise, Idaho is in northwest America, near Canada and California, that sort of area. And so since the last 25 years, my parents and our family have been running this temple, which has now become a cultural resource for not only the Indians there, now there's about 300 Indian families there, but also for the locals, for the local Americans who are going to the university or who are interested in Vedic culture. So a lot of our energy and our interests are in developing this temple and making it more and more attractive to the public and more appealing to the public. So some of my hobbies are speaking at various colleges and high schools there, presenting Krishna consciousness to them, which they're very interested in. Both my brother and I, we started speaking when we were like 13 and 14 years old. We would go to the high schools there, and the students were just fascinated to learn about this culture, to learn about, to hear the kirtan and to participate in it. So that's been something we've been doing. Then music, so that's also an interest and hobby that I have. Besides this, both my brother and I have been teaching and preaching in the temple and developing a congregation there where people are becoming more and more interested in Krishna consciousness.
Prabhu, thank you very much. And mostly because you're pursuing your PhD in science and religion, right? So how do you connect this career of yours to the mission of Srila Prabhupada?
Growing up, I liked the sciences, so I did my bachelor's and master's in electrical engineering first. I was good at math and sciences, so I had a great interest in science, and I also grew up in an atmosphere in which my parents tried to inculcate the Vedic culture. So after I finished my master's in electrical engineering, I felt a little bored. I thought, well, this is very nice, I like doing this, but you know, I could just go on being an engineer. Like there's hundreds of engineers, millions of engineers, but I want to go a bit deeper, you know, into the questions of life, the purpose of life, and also I want to make more of a contribution to the world. If the world has one more doctor or one more engineer, then that's good, but it'll just be one more. And so then I started looking for some way I could connect these two. I could present these two because now, especially in society today, science is the driving force in the world. It's transformed the world. Technology has changed the way we live, like transformed the way people are living on a day-to-day basis. So science is a very powerful force, and religion is also a very powerful force in people's lives. So these days people are trying to find the connection between science and religion. There's been a lot of public debates and court cases over whether or not science and religion, or to what degree should science and religion be taught in schools today as well. So I wanted to find a way to connect these two. And then I found this program at Oxford University in science and religion, which was a study of the relationship between these two areas of thought. They studied historically what's the history of science and religion, and then also contemporary debates in science and religion. So most of this debate has been between science and Christianity, or science and Islam, or science and Judaism, but very little work had been done on the relationship between science and Hinduism, or science and Vaishnavism. So I found this to be a very good area to work in, to present to people in general how our Vedic scriptures are very scientific in nature, how science and religion can both work together to improve the world, and how now science itself is asking very religious questions, like what's the origins of space and time? How do we transcend space and time? Science and religion are asking the questions about the origins of the universe. So I find that through my studies, and through the studies in science and religion, I can, this is a very wonderful tool to further Srila Prabhupada's movement, because it's presenting Srila Prabhupada's movement in the academic circles, in the intellectual circles of the world. And Oxford University is at the heart of this discussion. It's at the heart of this intellectual scene. So there, if we can show that how the Srimad Bhagavatam has so much scientific material in it, and how it is very scientific in nature, and it can actually help the sciences. It can shed light on scientific issues, on environmental issues, on economic issues, and how it's a text that's relevant today. If we can show that, then people will be more interested in reading the Bhagavatam and will be more interested in its subject matter.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. And one more thing is that we learned that you've been homeschooled by your parents. So that is very interesting for all of us, because that trend is not seen anywhere around the world. So what are the things you cherish in your homeschooling experience, and if at all there are any challenges, what are they?
Initially, when we started our education, for the first 2 years we went to a private school in America. It was a Montessori school, a Cardin school, and there we were studying with just other students who were coming from so many different backgrounds. And it was good. It was a nice experience. We were having a decent time there at school. But at a certain point, my parents felt that there were two problems with the school system. One was that we weren't able to practice our culture and our spiritual life in the way that we could if we had a more conducive environment. And secondly, that school is meant for a general standard. So they felt oftentimes that we weren't being challenged enough at school. So after that, my parents pulled us out of school and started homeschooling us. And both my brother and I, we actually enjoyed homeschooling more than going to outside school. Because in homeschooling, you can develop on whatever talents or interests that you have, and you can spend more time on those subjects, and spend, you could say, the same amount of time or less time on other subjects. So I feel that homeschooling is in some ways more creative, and it allows for more creative thinking. And in our homeschooling experience, it was very enjoyable because we had the opportunity, again, to reach out to the community, to do programs in the community. We had a very colorful, you could say, education, which wasn't restricted to the classroom, but was, we were being educated in other ways as well, to do musical performances, to write articles for newspapers or magazines presenting Krishna consciousness to them. My brother, for a long time, he was writing in the local newspaper, and we would get phone calls from people from the city because they were so impressed by the articles and they wanted to know more about Krishna consciousness. He was also writing for Back to Godhead magazine for quite some time. So all of these things then finally were very good for us. They made us very interested in Krishna consciousness. And then, this wasn't planned, but then also, due to homeschooling, we both ended up entering college at a very young age. Both my brother and I started university at the age of 13, which meant that we could skip so many years of studies in high school and move more quickly, and both of us then were able to do, and hopefully will be able to do some service for Srila Prabhupada's movement.